Hello, welcome to Clash of the Rams, the sports talk show. I'm your host, Jeremy Hayes, and along with me we have Davison Perez.
How's everybody doing?
Ryan Chevy Chevalier.
Shout out to the Wizards getting Leandro Barbosa in a trade, but he has a torn ACL.
Jeez, it's a little long, man. Ashley Cassidy.
Hi, everyone.
All right, and that's all of us, and we're going to jump right into it. Ashley and I are going to start out discussing hockey, which is AKA the Chicago Blackhawks, because they're basically dominating the league right now. So, Ashley, what are your thoughts right now on the Chicago Blackhawks?
There's no better team to start out with Chicago. They're 15-0-3. They have made a new NHL record for the best start of the season. The last team to hold this record was the Anaheim Ducks in 2007, which the Ducks went on that year to win the Stanley Cup. Chicago's unreal. Their top 5 players have 10 points or more. Patrick Kane's playing unbelievable. He's 4th in the league with most points. And Corey Crawford, who struggled last year, the goalie, he's having a great season. He's 8-0-3, and he has dealt with some injuries, but their backup goalie, Ray Emery, has not let them down. He's 7-0-0. It's incredible, and it's not just the top 5 guys playing well. It's even the younger players like Kruger and Shaw. It's a team effort, and that's why they're going to continue to have such success. And I would not be surprised if they were like the Ducks and they go on to win the Stanley Cup as well.
Honestly, I'm really glad you actually brought up the 7-0 with the backup goalie, because that's something I just learned recently, actually.
Yeah.
And that's very impressive. But as far as the Blackhawks being the best, you can say this with any sport where there are more than 17 games in a season.
Right.
It means nothing right now, really.
Well, of course, any team has the potential to go on the same winning streak, but they have such consistency through every game and play so hard, and it's such a team effort. So we have to hope that, Hossa stays healthy, and the top guys like Sharp, Kane, they stay healthy, and that the goalies are as effective as they are now. I don't see them going not on a winning streak or, not being number 1 in the league.
Well, honestly, we got to think for a second and look at their season. 7 of their games were in overtime or in a shootout that they won. And actually, 3 games they lost in a shootout. So this perfect team, they're not exactly perfect, but hockey, the way that they look at it, you look at it on paper and you see that 0 in the loss and you're like, wow, but you got to think about it, they still lost.
But all I'm going to say is every other team in the past who's gone on this winning stretch of wins, they've all gone to Stanley Cup.
I got to be honest, though, as far as the West, I'm not impressed.
No.
I'll give the unimpressed face, though, because I'm really not impressed. Because, honestly, you look at the East right now, who's number 1? Montreal.
Montreal.
Who would they go against if the playoffs started right now? Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay could take them easily, to be honest with you.
It's crazy, and that's what the Bruins, for Montreal to be first in the Northeast Division and the Bruins to be second. Montreal was dead last in the Eastern Conference last year, and for them to be doing so great, it's incredible, and that's something the Bruins need to realize. They're a divisional threat. And the Bruins are 11-2-2 right now, and they're having a great season, but they need to put their power on, because they're going to have 64 games, 32 games in 64 days. So they just got back from Florida. They're going to be playing the Islanders Tuesday. Hopefully they got a lot of rest. They won against Tampa and the Panthers in Florida, because they need to have that rest for their crazy schedule ahead.
And you nailed it on the head there as far as them with Montreal.
Right.
At first it's like, oh, Montreal's winning some games.
Yeah.
That's cute. We're getting deeper into the season, and now they're actually considered a threat.
Yeah, they have killed 21 consecutive penalties, and they're first in the league for the penalty kill, but they're 28th in the league for their power play percentage. So they need to step that up if they really want to be a Stanley Cup contender again.
Yeah, and honestly, like I brought this up, I'm going to go back to what I said I think the East is basically anybody. I feel like anybody can win, whereas Chicago in the West, or let's call it Chicago now, we won't even call it the West because they're dominating. Other than Anaheim, I was going to say Anaheim.
And Stanley Cup champs last year, the Kings, they had a struggling start to the season, but they've won 3 consecutive wins. So hopefully they get their gears going. Brown looks good, so hopefully it stays that way.
Their defenseman Green is out for the year, though.
Yeah.
So that actually made me lose faith early on because I thought their defense was bad before. Right. I think it's going to keep getting worse.
And back to the East, the Rangers. That was a team coming into the season everyone had such hype about because they got Mr. Rick Nash, who's arguably one of the best players in the league, and they only traded Amisimov and one other player to Columbus, and they essentially have the same team, and they were first in the Eastern Conference last year. And to be struggling with scoring goals when they have some of the best goal scorers in the league, and Gaborik and Richards, and they're not, they're struggling. They're 8-7-3, I think. It's just not, too much hype on them.
Honestly, what I said before, though, I don't think the Rangers are out of it because, like I said, I think the East has a lot of depth. I think even like I said, Tampa Bay, I think they could compete with Chicago.
Yeah, I just think the Rangers forever, they have always been inconsistent.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll agree with
that. And I think the Bruins can take them any day, even though they did beat them last time in a shootout. I think the Bruins are a stronger team.
All right, before we move on, how about just teams to watch out for, so far, because we're getting pretty close. It's a short season. We're getting pretty close. Who are the teams that you're looking at as the favorites, if not Chicago?
If not in the West, definitely Anaheim. They're an unreal team right now. They're 13-2-1. Last season, they were last in the Pacific Division. This year, they're first. They're just looking great. In the East, Carolina, they had a rough start, but they're really pulling through, and I wouldn't be surprised if they, come out strong, just keep coming out strong as the season goes on. Obviously, Pittsburgh, and then Philly, who everyone always thinks is great, is really struggling, and I'm not expecting much from them as the season goes on.
All right, as far as for me, always the Bruins. I think the Bruins do have one of the best defenses. But as far as, my surprise team that I think could even beat any team in the West, Ottawa, I think, has one of the best goalies right now, and one of the best defenses.
I completely agree. And with the Bruins, they have the top 6 forwards in the league right now, so their lines are really strong. And Krejci, Marchand, they're looking hot. And Sagan, everyone keeps harping on him for not scoring enough goals. Enough is enough. He is a plus-minus of 11, and he looks awesome. So they're going to, I think, pull through in the East.
All right, well, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is NBA. So we're going to ship it over to you two.
Sounds good.
As far as the NBA. So let's just hear about trade deadline pass. A little bit of a yawn fest, if you ask me. But what do you guys think about the moves with the Celtics or just any other team?
Well, Jeremy, yawn fest is right. I'm completely disappointed with the NBA draft this season, but I kind of expected it at the same time. The teams that, usually in the trade deadline, teams are just looking to alleviate salary cap and get rid of some players to have a shot at free agency. So teams like Cleveland, Portland, Phoenix, they all made moves, and I'm saying it, Golden State, they all made moves at the trade deadline to, like I said, alleviate that salary cap and open up a spot to try to get maybe Al Jefferson, who's going to be a free agent, or any among many of the other players that are going to be free agents in 2014. So a bit of a yawn fest for the trade deadline. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
Well, what's interesting is that the Celtics added Jordan Crawford,
yes.
And I don't know how that trade went through because Leandro Barbosa was injured, or that's the Wizards' problem. And anyways, then the Bucks, they also acquired J.J. Redick.
Yeah.
So the Bucks are trying to make their way in to maybe get a spot over the Celtics, and Celtics haven't looked too good lately. Mm-hmm. So hopefully they can hold on. I still think they can hold a above 500 record, the Celtics, and still get like a 7th, 8th seed. Yep. We'll see where it ends up, but because the East and that whole conference is just so weak. I mean, you have Milwaukee 76ers looking really bad. Mm-hmm. So I think Celtics will hold on, but they want to work towards getting a higher seed.
Definitely. I really do agree with your point about J.J. Redick making the Bucks a better team. J.J. Redick adds another dimension, which they lost when they lost Mark Ellis to Golden State. Mm-hmm. I do believe that Jordan Crawford and Terrence Williams could be the make or break for their season, in my opinion. Terrence Williams and Jordan Crawford both have a reputation of being scorers, but at the same time they're selfish. So in my opinion, they basically acquired two more Rondos, in my opinion, because the ego plays a big factor in that locker room with Rondo not being not being regarded as a part of the big three. So in my opinion, the Celtics they're making strides to the future, and they're kind of caught in a spot where they want to rebuild and they want to start getting younger for the future, but at the same time the market that they're playing in is the Boston market, obviously, and they need to win championships now in order to entertain and to acquiesce to the Celtics fans.
Yeah, and it's also about just the injuries. The Celtics have been plagued with injuries with Sullinger and Rondo, so they had to just add these guys. Terrence Williams, he was just added basically as a roster spot, and I don't think they'll get a lot of time, these guys, but it will be interesting to see if Doc Rivers can really just have them come off bench and be another role player for this team, for the Celtics.
And in terms of the Celtics reaching the playoffs, I really do believe that they will make the playoffs. And for the past week, I've been going back and forth on whether or not they'll lose in the first round. But after closely thinking about it, they have a chance to either face the Knicks, the Pacers, or the Heat, depending on where they are in the standings, right? So one of those top 4 teams. In my opinion, if they go against either the Pacers or Atlanta, they wouldn't match up too strongly. Well, they would actually beat those teams because of their veteran players and their role players and things like that. So, in my opinion, if the playoffs were to start right now with the Celtics being in 7th place, they would face the Pacers, and I think they would take out the Pacers and eventually lose to the New York Knicks. Jeremy's scuffing at me, but I believe, granted, the Pacers are playing on fire right now, and they have a young cast that's very hard-nosed and very well put together on defense. At the same time, you can't trump good playoff experience, and the Celtics have Jason Terry, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett to kind of motivate their squad and to kind of build them up to beat those kinds of teams.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be important what seed they get, because I don't know if they can beat a Miami or the Knicks right now. They're just, their roster's really plagued. So maybe, they could beat the Pacers. I think the Bulls are even in there somewhere. Yeah. And those are teams I think they can compete with, especially if Bulls don't have Derrick Rose by playoff time. But it will be really tough if they have to play Heat or Knicks, because it just hasn't gone their way, the Celtics, this season, with injuries. And if they do somehow get to the second round, we don't know what will happen, because this team has proven that they can go pretty far deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. Just to add on the point about the New York Knicks just added Kenyon Martin, which in my opinion will benefit them heavily because of the way that they've been playing. Like you said, they've been playing really well, and adding Kenyon Martin, a top-tier defensive player, is only going to benefit them. So,
and that's what Celtics need, guys down low.
And I think they could actually give the Heat a run for their money in the Eastern Conference Finals, to be honest with you, because they have with the addition of Kenyon Martin, they have Kenyon Martin, who can substitute for a power forward and a center because of his height, his length, and his build. And they have Tyson Chandler, the reigning defensive player, the defensive player of the year last year. So it will be interesting to see them play, to be honest.
Before we move on, just a quick answer, because there was a big thing going on in the trade deadline that we didn't address. Kevin Garnett, are you not necessarily happy, but you think that was the smart move by the Celtics, or you think that they're not thinking about the future by keeping him?
I definitely think that they aren't. It goes back to that point I made about them being in a position where they want to rebuild and they want to revamp the roster and make them younger, but at the same time they don't want to get rid of the household names like Kevin Garnett and like Paul Pierce, because those are the people that sell jerseys, and those are the people that Boston fans come to see, and they kind of want them to end their career in Boston. But that's just my opinion. There's no way I know what they're thinking, but that's just the way I see it right now. I think it was a bad decision to keep Kevin Garnett just for the simple fact that they are older now. Yeah. But at the same time, there wasn't really anybody out there that was that
we could
would
go
fill
forward.
in his position.
Yeah, Ron?
Yeah,
real
and
quick?
I love guys staying with their team like their whole year and whole career. Well, for the most part, he was with
Yeah,
Timberwolves,
Timberwolves.
but just he's a true Celtic. And yeah, but as far as ownership and stuff, he also had the opt out of a trade in his clause. So it was a real tough situation because even if you did trade for some prospects, you don't know if Garnett would have accepted it. So, you know, it's what it is. It's really a good thing for now. We'll go try to get a championship, but it's unlikely we can go all the way. But we'll see what happens. Next year we'll get Rondo back, and we'll try to put the pieces together to rebuild for a championship year.
One thing I will say is going to be a long couple of years for a Boston Celtics fan. If they're really thinking about winning a championship now, I don't see it happening in the near future.
Yeah. All right.